If you've clicked on this video, you've probably seen a title much like, "This is why we exist." In reality, I'm having an existential crisis. Not for the first time, and not for the last. And I'm opening up this video to your perspective, to our perspective, because I'm trying to, once again, gain more insight and knowledge as to why the fuck we're here. So I'm going to share my experience and my perspective, but I'm opening this up to our collective experience, and I'm really putting symbiotic vibration to the test here, because that's what this community is all about. It's about shared experience. So, if you would like to, please feel free to leave your own comment. So let's get into it, This eclipse season has been profound, and my subconscious has been unearthing itself in front of me for the last week. Within this experience, I keep finding myself asking why. Why is this? What is my purpose? Why am I here? Why are we here? Let's look at it from a lens of the universe, or God, or consciousness, or whatever it is that you want to call that, being the creator. This omniscient being, omniscient meaning all-knowing, that it knows everything that ever could be. And so then I ask myself the question, if this omniscient being knows everything, then why did it need to create in the first place? And to supplement that question, if this experience has been created by this omniscient being, what was here before that? Those questions blow my mind, and they make me feel ungrounded within my reality here. So let's track back. If this omniscient being is all-knowing, why would it have to create existence in the first place? And so, to me, the reason why it has been created is because how could one who is all-knowing understand what courage feels like without feeling fear? How could it contextualize what reunion feels like without first experiencing separation? How could it experience just how infinitely loving it is without having pain and loss to contextualize what that love feels like? And so it would make sense to me that this omniscient being, consciousness, the universe, God, needed to create itself from nothing in order to experience, in order to know what it is, to feel what it is. And so to me, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense as to why we're even here in the first place. We are all here, all within multiplicity, meaning everything that's here. Billions of trees, billions of people, billions of species, all here, all a subjective piece of the conscious puzzle we've woven together within this reality that we all feel and hear and see. And that is somewhat comforting to know. And it makes me feel very connected to everything that's around me. It makes me feel connected to you. It makes me feel connected to our species, to our planet, to consciousness itself, because I am consciousness. You are consciousness. You are infinite. You are omniscient in nature, which is just beautiful, and it makes me feel good to even talk about this. So, moving from there, now that I have built a foundation as to what this is, now we can begin to understand duality, because if this creator consciousness needs to understand itself, needs to know itself, it needs to have that fear, to feel that courage, it needs to have that separation, to have that reunion, it needs to have that pain, to have that love. And so this is duality at its core. This is why we have evil on this planet. This is why we experience physical pain and mental pain. It is so that we can contextualize the beauty and the love. And it is an unfortunate consequence of creation, because it's not easy to exist here, as I'm sure you're aware. This also helps us to break down why it is that there is so much evil on this planet. Because the universe, or consciousness, or God, wants to experience everything. Everything. And if it wants to experience everything, well, then it has to experience everything. All of the evil, all of the blissful, all of the sinister, all of the loving, all of the scintillating, all of the mesmerizing, all of the deplorable acts. It needs to experience it all, which again can be somewhat comforting, but also I don't think we can disconnect from these evil acts that are playing out just because we know that consciousness has created to experience this and experience everything. Because if we just desensitize to it all, well then, what's the purpose? But what is the purpose? Where are we going? What's the end goal? How does it end? And that's where I keep getting lost, you know. Where does this stop? Do we eventually collectively heighten in consciousness to a point that we no longer need to experience, and then just dissolve and unify back into one? Back into where we all began, only now with contextualization as to what we are? And how do we get there? And that in itself then brings me to purpose, because I question my purpose all of the time. Knowing what I've just said, sometimes it gets a little bit confusing to think about purpose. You know, if everything has to be learned then and experienced, then what are we trying to achieve by stopping everything? And that is scary to think about. But anyway, when I think about purpose, I think about souls. I think about my soul. You see, I've experienced past life regressions. I've had a near-death experience. You can watch that video up here somewhere, wherein I literally left my body whilst almost dying with a brain tumor. So I have tangible evidence that I am a soul and that I can leave my body. Not just through that experience, but also through many other psychedelic experiences and transcendental meditative experiences and conversations. I'm 100% confident to say that we are all souls. And to go back to this creation, we're not only living on Earth, We are living within a dimension, and we have been created down here on this realm with our senses that allow us to experience this realm. However, there are many realms here, according to me, and according to the many. I've experienced many of them. You know, when you use psychedelics, if you have, and this realm changes in front of you, the fabrics of reality distort. You might be communicating with beings that you never saw before. You might be communicating with trees who you didn't think were alive. You might be watching the grass breed. That dimension is still here, because all dimensions are collapsed down into one, apparently. But all, again, created by this creator. And so while we're here experiencing Earth, this realm, there are many realms. And if the universe needs to experience everything, well then we can only really presume that it's experiencing everything on Earth here, everything that we can possibly experience as a collective, including all the trees and all the animals, and all the insects, all the microorganisms, and all the humans. But also, at the same time, it's experiencing life as an angelic being, life as a Luciferian being, if you want to call them that. It's experiencing life in every single dimension. And we're souls down here on planet Earth. If we are to take reincarnation as truth, which I do, because I've had past life regressions, I've felt my past lives. Am I touching on collective consciousness there, and we've all experienced these lives? Or have they actually been subjectively mine? I'm not 100% true on that, but I have felt them. And so I feel as though as a soul, we also need to experience everything subjectively to then return back to oneness. Or so it would appear. And this is how it gets quite confusing. So if you have any information, that would be great, because if we are all souls having our own individual experience, consistently recycling and recycling and recycling, perhaps we experience everything on Earth, and then we go to the next dimension. Perhaps we become an angelic being. Perhaps we become something else. But then why would we all have to do that subjectively when the universe could just create itself within every single experience at the same time, learn everything, and then collapse back into oneness? So that's where the confusing perspective comes in. That's where I question, am I just having one experience here, or am I having many? It just becomes so confusing. So confusing. And so if you have any context, that would be fantastic. But anyway, let's get back to our individual purpose here. You know, I feel as though, for me, if you've been watching my videos, you already notice I have such an intimate connection with my land, with these beautiful trees, with the beautiful Mother Earth, with consciousness and every single atom, every fabric of reality that exists, and all of the people on this planet, all of their hearts, my heart. And I feel as though our job here is to awaken and to remember and to walk each other home to oneness. Some of us have come here to really push this awakening. Some of us have come here for different reasons. I feel as though I have come here to shine light, to try to help myself to remember and help others to remember that we are all one here. And in doing so, to push this species in a more positive direction, because yes, duality exists. We cannot have love without pain, but that doesn't necessarily mean we need to have evil. And yes, I know the universe needs to experience everything that is, but we're still here. We still have to experience this. And the world could be potentially one wherein humanity is infinitely loving and connected and compassionate towards one another. And if that's the case, well, then there would be no evil. And I think that's what we're trying to experience as a collective here. As one omniscient being, it's trying to return back to itself. And it has to experience everything before it does. And we are it. And so it is our job to return home. And to do that, we need to be infinitely connected and compassionate and loving towards each other. And to create a world devoid of evil, a devoid of boundary, devoid of separation. And that's what symbiotic vibration is all about, you know. That's why I've created it, to build a beautiful community wherein we can express our love for one another, wherein we can suffer together, wherein we can share our journeys and hopefully feel connected and safe to express ourselves, and safe to feel seen, and safe to feel guided. And so that's as much as I need to share with regards to my perspective today. I hope that this has made some sense. It has been very difficult for me to flow through that whole experience, to try and create something tangible for you to experience, and not just a myriad of mad thoughts coming from a disheveled mind. So I hope this has made sense, and I hope that you feel implored to leave your own perspective and comments. And I love you all. I mean that every single time, and I'm sure you understand why now. But yeah, I guess I'll leave you with that. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.